All right, everybody. Today I've got a 2004 Volvo XC70 cross-country all-wheel drive. They came in because they said the left side was sitting a little bit low, and the reason why it's sitting low is it's got a broken spring. It's supposed to be up here on the shock absorber. It's got a broken spring, so we're gonna have to get the spring out. And I did a little research. Nobody's got a video up on this on how to do it. So we're gonna take the tires off. We're gonna replace both rear springs. It's got two bolts underneath here that we have to take out, and this we have to take out, but there's also supposed to be a bolt up in the cargo area that we'll have to take out. So let me get some of the tires off it and we'll see. Actually, we're still waiting for the springs to get here, but once the springs get here, we'll start taking it apart. So I couldn't find any instructions on how to take these rear shock springs, coilover shocks out of this Volvo, but in my ShopKey Pro, it tells you to do this pre-preparatory work, which is you have to go into the trunk and flip up, and there's one bolt that holds the assembly in, and then there's two bolts from underneath. So I wanted to show you the picture of this. This is kind of hidden in here, but it does show you that. So now I'll show you where it is in the car. So we're now in the back of this Volvo cross country. So let me show you that bolt that they're talking about that I just showed you in the picture. So when you open up the back here, you flip this back and you flip this foam forward, and there's the top of the rear shock, strut, spring assembly, whatever you want to call it. And right there you have to take that bolt out on this side and the same thing on the other side, and then you can drop the whole assembly out because there's two bolts that come up through underneath. And the same thing, you just pull this back and peel this foam back. It's stuck down and the bolt's up there. Luckily I saw a note that says, hey, you have to take this hidden bolt out or they won't come out. So there we go. And now I found out that the springs won't be here till Monday, so we will continue this video on Monday. All right, we're back on this 2004 Volvo XC70 Cross Country, I do believe it's called. Is that what it's called? Yes, Cross Country. So you have to come in here, pull out these little round donut thingies, and take out these two hidden bolts up in the trunk, so the top of the struts will come out. Same thing on this side over here. You got the plastic pieces, and then we just take out these two, and now the other bolts are come up through the bottom that hold this in. So let me go ahead and get it up in the air and we'll get underneath the car. All right, here's another look at this broken spring on this like coiled over shock. And we're going to go ahead and replace both of them. I don't know if you can, this is going to pick it up, but you can see that this lower spring here is very rusty and it's probably going to break also. So now what we have to do is we have to take this bolt out and this bolt out. And then there's a bolt up there and another bolt in here. And hopefully the whole assembly will drop out. I'm also going to put a jiggle jack underneath this so everything else doesn't fall down and put any stress on any of the brake hoses and stuff. Alright, I went ahead and took the tires off to make it easier. There's a 14mm bolt here, a 14mm bolt here, and there's another bolt here. I can't remember, I think it's an 18 or a 19. And I got the jiggle jack underneath. We're going to try to pry this piece off. And of course, this broken spring is in the way. We're going to have to try to pry the broken spring out of the way. And hopefully, well, it just comes out like that. Of course, this has the broken spring. So that one, we're going to have to figure out how to compress it. I have two different types of spring compressors to get the spring back on here. So since the spring releases tension, we can go ahead and take this nut off. So here's a safety precaution. If you don't know what you're doing, don't do this job. The spring on the other side is going to be under tension, and I have to put the new spring under tension. Very dangerous. That spring gets away, it can kill you.
So I don't recommend anybody doing this unless you have the proper equipment of a spring compressor. I have 2 different types of spring compressor I'm going to be using. Please don't do this job unless you have the proper tools. All right, I took the bolt off that was on top of the shock absorber that went into the big plate. Of course, everything fell apart, so then I had to figure out how this goes back together. So I figured out how this goes back together. You can see that there are marks here and marks on the other side, so it fits in here just like that. I'm probably going to take a little piece of black tape and tape that into place, and then I already kind of test fit it. I am going to have to compress the spring. Some of these shock over spring styles, there's actually, you don't have to compress it, but you do. So let me get everything assembled and into the spring compressor, and I'll come back. All right, I got it up in my strut compressor machine. I think this will do it. And also what I did is, you can see the rubber bushing. I went ahead and put a little black tape on there to keep that bushing where it needs to go. Now over on the left part of the screen, that little indentation is where it needs to go on this part of the spring. I'm going to fish this in here and get it lined up on that indent right there, and plop it down. And plop it down. And like I said, this tape isn't going to hurt anything. As you can see right there with that mark, the original mark, I'm right where I need to be. So now I just need to start unscrewing this down to get this down, to get the spring back through the hole, and we'll put the nut on it and tighten it. Kind of hard to do this with holding the camera, so hey, let me see if I can get you set up over here. We're hitting right here, so I might have to take and grab it from the very top. I think I got it set up in here to where I want it. I have to go get the nut and the socket to put that back together. I'm also going to grab a mirror, so let me come right back. All right, so I got the thing finally adjusted in the strut machine so I could get everything lined up to get the nut back on. So now the nut's back on. I'm going to take my impact and tighten that down and make sure it's all the way tight. And then this one is done. And now that I have this thing set up, it won't take me as long to do the other side as this one, because it took me a long time to get this one set up, to get the shock lined up in the hole, to get it all back together. So I'll get this one out, I'll tighten up the nut. Actually, I'm going to tighten it up before I take it out of the strut compressor to make sure you're tightening it, not loosening it. Once again, if you don't have the proper tools, please do not attempt to do this job. You had to compress the spring. Compressed springs are very dangerous. All right, with some finagling, we got it back in here. I put the bolt back in here. I put the bolt back here. And these are actually adjustable inside and out. So I went ahead and put them back into the same holes where they were before. We got this in. We had to pry down on this whole assembly to get this popped back on. We got that popped back on. So there is how you put the springs in a Volvo XC70 cross country. If you like the video, please subscribe. We're gonna do the other side here. Already got the bolt out here. We're gonna get up in here and get the other two bolts out here. And we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna pull the whole assembly out, put it into the strut compressor. This one we're gonna have to put in the strut compressor. We're gonna take this one out and put it in the strut compressor, compress it, and then let it off slowly to release the tension on the spring and get the new spring in. So, like I was saying before, if you like the video, please subscribe. Give me a thumbs up if you like the video, and thanks for watching, everybody.